Hello, we are continuing to highlight innovations that have occurred at the College of Veterinary Medicine. Joining me today is Dr. Ken Adler. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a professor in the MBS department at NC State in the College of Veterinary Medicine. I've been there since 1987. I've been a professor, I guess, since the early 2000s. I've won numerous awards from NC State, including the Max Gardner Award, the Holiday Medal, and more recently the Innovator of the Year Award. I think that was in 2014. And I've had a large research program in lung disease that was NIH funded over many years. And more recently, we've gotten into research involving inflammation in the eye and some work with lung cancer. In the early 2000s, I was involved in starting up a biotech company called Biomark, based on some work that came out of my laboratory. And the company was formed to originally look at diseases in the airways, such as chronic bronchitis and asthma. And since then, the company has developed a drug which got FDA approval for several clinical trials. So we've done phase 2 clinical trials in chronic bronchitis, and more recently in lung cancer, and a disease called acute respiratory distress syndrome, ARDS. And what makes the ARDS study really interesting was in January or February of this year, with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, it turned out that patients, or a large majority of patients who were dying of COVID-19 were dying of acute respiratory distress syndrome, which was abbreviated ARDS. And the studies that we had done, the clinical trials, were with patients prior to COVID-19, but the trials were highly successful. ARDS is a often fatal disease. Almost half of the patients that come down with it die. And we were able to cut mortality by over 40% in the clinical trial. So it was almost like a meeting of circumstances when COVID-19 became so prominent around the world, and the end of this clinical trial showed that ARDS, the component of COVID which causes a majority of the deaths, could possibly be treated with this drug that was developed. So since that time, we're in constant communication, both the FDA and the NIH, and we have a protocol in to test this particular drug in COVID-19 patients. Take a step back, the actual drug that was developed is a drug that inhibits the function of a protein called MARCS, M-A-R-C-K-S. Has nothing to do with Groucho Marx or Karl Marx. Marx is an acronym for myristylated alanine-rich C-kinase substrate. And without going into it in great detail, Marx is a molecule found in a number of different cells, and it's found in inflammatory cells and in cancer cells. And basically, it's responsible for these cells moving. In the case of cancer cells, Marx is involved in the movement of cancer cells, which is known as metastasis. In inflammation, inflammatory cells are brought to sites of injury or infection through the bloodstream. And again, the movement of these inflammatory cells to these sites involves integrally the protein MARCS. And the drug that we have developed over last 20, 25 years, I did some initial basic research on the function of MARCS protein and found that it's involved in the movement of these cells. And the drug that was developed actually inhibits the function of MARCS protein. This was the first time that MARCS was able to be inhibited back 15, 20 years ago when this reagent was developed. And then through the tech transfer office at NC State, patented the molecule and started the biotech company called Biomark to try to commercialize this particular molecule.
And so all that work has now led to a promising treatment for COVID patients.
Yeah, the ARDS that I talked about, these COVID patients get, it's after they progress from viral pneumonia. It's still at a strong inflammatory um, um, process in the lung, and it brings in all these inflammatory cells. And we've shown in the clinical trials and in a variety of animal models that we can actually block the movement of these inflammatory cells into the lung. So the patient population that we're looking at in COVID-19 are patients that are just finishing with their viral pneumonia and are progressing to the development of ARDS before it's fully blown, where they put on a ventilator to see if we can keep them off the ventilator. Okay, I would like to say that this development of this drug and to be in the position that we're in now would not have been possible without the support of the administration at the College of Veterinary Medicine and the administration at NC State up to the Chancellor's office. The Chancellor is well aware of these studies and has been highly supportive, the Chancellor and the Provost. So I'd like to thank them for their support.
That's fascinating. Give the man another award. Well, thank you for joining us and for sharing and for all your important work you've been doing.
Well, it's my pleasure. I certainly will keep everyone up to date. As I said before, we have a lot of proposals into NIH and to the FDA for approval to do this clinical trial. We have a network in place to be able to plug it right into testing it in COVID-19 patients. And stay tuned, this could be an important therapeutic option for patients to try to keep them off ventilator.
That's great. Well, thanks again, Dr. Adler.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you.